How it is, peoples. Today, Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com is taking you way back to August 2008, where a mere $10 US could get you a set of super parts for your Toynami 1/100 scale VF-1 toys. These super parts haven't been made available again as standalone parts, but they've been packaged in various gift sets, essentially unchanged as recently as 2019. I get my Toynami 1/100 scale toys and other Robotech products from Big Bad Toy Store, and I encourage you to do the same. Click the link in the comments below to shop while supporting this channel. The standalone super parts came in an efficient box that included the super parts, a strike cannon, 6 reaction or reflex if you prefer missiles, and a pair of dual mount racks for those missiles. If you purchased a Wave 4 gift set, you'd get all of these same items in the same tray bundled with a VF-1 toy. If you purchased any of the releases after Wave 4, you would no longer receive a strike cannon. Kind of makes you wonder if Toynami is done with Do You Remember Love? Behind the tray, you'll also find stickers and instructions, and I'm going to begin this review by illustrating those instructions. Anytime I review an accessory, the first question I always get is, will it work on other toys from the line? And so I've got a Max VF-1A TV version here, never got its own dedicated super parts, and we're going to install the Wave 3 Max VF-1J super parts on this toy just to show that they're completely universal. They will work on any toy. And we're going to begin at the back of the leg. There is this part here, and this part has a slot in it to receive the arms in fighter mode, and I'm going to show you that. It actually works out pretty nicely. There's a peg in the bottom of the leg. You're just going to peg that part in. A nice firm connection. Then we have this leg armor. There is no removable piece to show any more detail, but it does have painted inserts for the little thruster nozzles and a little bit of armor detail on the back of the piece. And that just plugs in right into that peg in the side of the leg, like so. And then moving up, you can see we have another peg hole in the forearm. We have our armor piece that we can just plug in to that hole like so. The arms will fall off. They always do on these toys. It's just something you're gonna have to deal with. Finally, we have the backpack, and this is where things kind of fall apart from a design point. There is a cover on the back of the backpack that you're gonna need to remove. So there you can see I've begun removing it. It comes out, there are 2 holes. This is a very silly design element. They should just have these holes be flush and not put silly covers on, because since we have these silly covers, we have this part here that goes into the backpack, and you can see I'm using the VF-1J Max parts, so that part is blue when it should be theoretically white. So that's off-putting if you want to use these for more than just the one specific vehicle that the parts were made for. And then we can take our booster, and it's just going to slide on top of that peg that we've put in. Now, the other downside of this, these pegs can be very stiff, but here, let's go ahead and plug that in. So that's in there well enough. Now I can take this off by taking the whole piece off, and I want to just show you that stress mark on the other side. Now when I go to remove this, it's on there super tight. I have to use like a cell phone repair tool if I really did want to separate these things. So that's unfortunate. And there you can see my finger hit that thruster nozzle. That is an articulated nozzle, which is nice. These aren't articulated, but again, we do have some good paint work there. So that's nice to see. One fit issue that seems to vary from one toy to the next is the peg-in missile boom. If I push it in as hard as I can on this toy, you can see I still get a pretty big gap. So it looks like there's probably just some flushing in the plastic pieces on the inside or somewhere that isn't letting this slide in quite as far as it should. Jumping ahead now to fighter mode, I wanted to show you the reaction missiles. There is this dual missile rack here, and it is a little tricky because it's directional, and when you just grab the piece, there's no way of really knowing what's up and down. So take your piece before you've got the missiles installed, line it up, and try to fit it around the hard point. And if it fits on there, then you're doing things right. If it feels like it's fighting you, try flipping it over and then attaching it to the hard point. And if it works that way, you just know you had the wrong side up. Once you have the direction figured out, install both missiles. Support the rack as you install the missiles, because the weakest point of this rack is the thin center sections, and it is very easy to crack it right down the middle, either installing the missile or trying to force it on a hard point when you've got the wrong side up. So there we go, we can put that on there, that fits on there. The other reaction missile just plugs right into the hard point, and I haven't had any problem with these popping off when I want them to be on there nice and sturdy. The connection for the missiles seems to be pretty good. One thing Toynami does deserve some credit for, although they haven't consistently gotten this right, is they did put red missile tips on their TV releases and yellow missile tips on Do You Remember Love releases, so that is nice. Of course, you don't have to use the missiles. You could use the missiles that come with the toy. These are the Do You Remember Love style missiles. One big perk for VF-1 toys, the Do You Remember Love VF-1 Max and Hikaru, as well as a VF-1 S-Roy. These toys didn't have very long pegs that go from the leg into the knee, and as a result, when you handle this toy without fast packs on, the whole back of the fighter mode vehicle can come off, and it's really frustrating to handle. When you add the super parts, the connection of the leg armor to the arms is super secure, and it helps alleviate a lot of those handling issues. So for the VF-1 toys, I honestly am so frustrated with them in fighter mode. I almost never have them in that mode. With the super parts on, I feel like I can handle it, and that's great. You can see though, I do have a floppy backpack, so I don't have quite the whooshing I would have on a more premium toy, but still at least it's now handleable, whereas before it was just a sloppy mess. As with just about every super parts accessory I've ever reviewed, when you've got the parts on in fighter mode, the tip of the gun does hit the ground, but it's not causing anything to wobble. It's right at the same level as the landing gear, so pretty forgivable sin, especially at this size and price point. Now, one thing that is a little less attractive with these toys is that the kneecaps can't angle upward with the slope of the leg. So you get this protrusion here that kind of looks like an air dam. Really matters a whole lot more when you put the toy on a display stand like I've done here. But even then, it's not going to be terribly visual or visible most of the time. It is theoretically possible to go from fighter mode to Guardian mode without needing to remove any of the super parts. In reality, you're probably going to knock something loose and reattach it anyways. And I would just take off the arm during transformation. The arms fall off these toys so freely, and if you just take the arm off and then put it back on when the shoulder's in the right spot, you avoid the possibility of holding onto that arm only to drop the entire toy. So that can be pretty lame. Once you're in Guardian mode, the parts stay on well enough for most handling situations. Again, the arms falling off is just a factor of the underlying toy, and the little bit of weight that the super part armors add to that isn't helping anything, but it's not hurting any of your articulation, and the missiles are staying on well, the backpack's staying on well, so high marks for that stuff. Another issue that these parts may exacerbate, if you have some QC faults of the underlying toy, like this VF-1J Hikaru has a very bad time holding up the back plate. So I can kind of click things into place, get it to stay that way for a little bit, but for the most part, this wants to fall over. And when I put super parts on top, it just makes that happen that much more frequently. So if you have a problematic underlying toy, these super parts are not a fix. They're just going to exacerbate some of the problems you're already seeing. You might be wondering if using the display stand would help with Guardian mode, and the answer to that is definitely not. The display stand barely works with a regular VF-1 toy, and not always at that. The attachment in the back can't support the weight of the toy. You put super parts on and make the toy heavier, and it's just that much bigger of a failure. And here you can see even my intakes are just falling forward at that swing bar. So this is the best case scenario for a super part equipped VF-1 in Gearwalk or Guardian mode. Not ideal, so I do not recommend this unless you thought that looked good. And even then, if you bump it, it's going to look quasi gear walk or guardian mode, so don't even bother. Much like your experience in gear walk or guardian mode, your experience in Batroid or Batloid mode is going to depend a lot on the quality of your underlying VF-1 toy. So here, if we look at my Miria toy, she has a backpack that is nice and stiff on the toy. It's not drooping backwards. Everything works out well there. So as I move my toy around, I'm not constantly frustrated by the backpack falling off. Now, the boosters could attach a little more firmly in there, but that's the only real problem. Nothing serious going on, whereas with my Max toy, the backpack, no matter what I do, wants to fall backwards. And again, not a fault of the super parts, but it really just goes to that variability of build quality between one of these Toynami VF-1s and the next one, and what that's going to mean once you have these accessories in place. One of the strengths here is that these super parts do not require modifying the articulation of the underlying toy. They do not inhibit any of the joints. So any of the fun posing you could do with the original toy, throw on the super parts, you're still going to be able to get the toy into some pretty outrageous poses, which is really one of the strengths of the 1/100 VF-1 toy. So as long as you didn't get a complete QC dud, the super parts still going to allow you to get some really good aggressive poses. So you've got a loose backpack, it's driving you crazy. Well, good news, unlike the gear walk mode display stand, in Batroid or Batloid mode, if you want to go there, the display stand supports the backpack. So if you put the toy on the display stand, you can overcome a weak backpack, which is good news. You can also see I am using the slot in the super part here to hold the gun on. That remains an option for you. Also, you may have noticed that these are different color super parts. Toynami, as they've been doing their gift sets, has been changing the color pretty regularly. So if one color doesn't appeal to you, check out anymoon.com to see all of the colors are available and which ones you prefer. Overall, it's a solid attaching super part set. Good enough detail. It doesn't inhibit use of the underlying toy. It is a stupid thing that they've done with the backpack and how it attaches. But overall, if you've got a solid VF-1 toy and you want to see it in super parts, well, for 10 bucks that they used to cost, it wasn't a bad option. As things get more and more expensive, hopefully now you're armed with enough information to make a buying decision for yourself. Check out that full article on anymoon.com, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.